motto, handle my problems, I ain't scared.
Yo, welcome back, Pacer Nation, Pacer Station fans everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we have so much to talk about. It's going to be a topic-filled podcast today. Let me bring back for another podcast, Mr. Coach J. How you doing, Coach J?
Boycotting ESPN. How about yourself?
Man, I'm doing great. I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on regarding the Pacers right now. Just watched the scrimmage the other day. Just reading what everyone's been talking about. To go ahead and tell the people why you're boycotting ESPN and just the whole overview of the ESPN situation and what they're doing with Vic.
Yeah, this is another instance where, either big market franchises or, to a bigger extent, ESPN's ratings were never higher than when LeBron made the announcement, "I'm taking my talents to South Beach." They try to create a new one of those every summer. And there was a specific panel that involved Elamine and Richard Jefferson recently that I thought was absolutely out of line and completely inaccurate, and it was all speculative reporting. There was no basis in fact. Victor hasn't said anything negative. If anything, it's been the complete opposite about his relationship with the Pacers. There has been no reporting from the Pacers saying they're pressuring him into playing. His contract situation has nothing to do with the Pacers. That $3 million is being denied to him by the league, not the Pacers. The Pacers are actually fighting the league to make sure he does get paid.
Right.
So any fan who reads the headline about Victor's $3 million immediately assumes it's the Pacers, and it's not the case. You got to read the articles, and you got to decipher it for yourself. You can't believe everything you read.
Right. A lot of people just see the headline and they go with whatever the headline's saying. They don't really look into it.
Absolutely.
Those that don't know, what was it? Richard Jefferson had compared the Vic to the Kawhi situation.
Yeah, I actually would define that as being a cheap shot to the Pacers organization. They're a small market just like San Antonio. It's a completely different situation because Pop during the Kawhi Leonard situation was actively encouraging Kawhi to play. He was publicly saying that, which is not normally his style. And I think if you ask Pop today about how he handled that, I think Pop would have some regrets about the way that situation was handled. Now, at the same time,
absolutely,
that situation was blown completely out of proportion by ESPN. And I don't think Richard Jefferson I don't think that's his opinion at all. I think that's the producers at ESPN's perspective. They want a big story. They want clickbait because that corporation gets paid based on how many views that article or that video gets. And I think that was, if you've seen The Last Dance, you remember the deal with Michael Jordan, saying Michael Jordan was suspended by the league for 18 months. He didn't retire to go play baseball. He was suspended. It's the same thing. It's all speculative. There's no basis in fact. They just want to promote ESPN. That's their own. But what people don't realize is that is ESPN's only gain financially. They don't care about getting about any kind of accuracy. They just care about having the biggest story on the biggest platform because that's what makes them money.
Right. And I don't want to take this outside of sports, but you see that in a lot of different things in the world nowadays, where things over time have turned more into what can we do to make money for ourselves and build our brand instead of what we can do to inform the people and give them what they need.
Exactly.
It's changed.
Just
It's
look at our
changed over
political
time.
system.
Absolutely.
That's a whole other
Absolutely.
conversation. Let's not get into that.
Right. But it does make you think it's a much bigger picture thing. That it happens a lot in sports, but it's a bigger thing in the grand scheme of things. It's a whole the media in general can do a lot better when it comes to informing people. In the sports world,
And one of the things that I think needs to be taught in high schools is I think there needs to be media. They need to teach financial, and in college they need to teach financial literacy, and in
right.
high schools they need to teach media literacy. They need to teach young adults and kids what media sources are accurate. They need to teach kids that there are agendas behind every
Right.
broadcast, and they need to know what is real and what isn't.
Right. But when the people that are writing those books and writing what they're picking what they learned, or the people that are helping the broadcast run the way they are, it's hard to find a way to break into that system and change it.
Absolutely.
So Vic had 8 points in the scrimmage the other day. Vic I think if anybody really knows Victor Oladipo and knows him as a person, if they watch this 20-minute or so interview he did after that practice the other day, they know that if he can, he's going to want to play. He wants to play. And I don't know why a lot of
Exactly.
Pacers fans think that he's trying to get away with not playing and getting paid, and it's not his goal. His goal is to play, but he's smarter than just playing impulsively without thinking it out.
He's thinking big picture, which when you've got that kind of money on the line, you have the right to think that way.
Absolutely.
And it's your money, it's your career. You have to make the right decision. And what us fans need to realize and understand is that we want him to play for him, not for us. And I think so many people want immediate gratification. I think everybody's been so isolated from professional sports due to Corona that they just want everything to be this positive situation, and they forget that these players are human. I think if Corona did not happen, I don't think this would be as big an issue.
I mean, people really do completely lose sight of the fact that Victor does not owe us anything. He does not owe us anything.
Exactly.
I mean, he came here and blossomed into a star. We should be happy with what he's become and let him make his own decisions. Even if he didn't want to play, which I know he does, knowing him. Even if he didn't, we should let that be his decision. He's come here and he's given it his all so far. He wasn't doing this in OKC. He wasn't doing this in Orlando.
Exactly. This is a perfect situation for him. He knows it, his agent knows it, and Kevin Pritchard knows it. And as I mentioned in the last video, every time Herb Simon and the Pacers ownership group have been faced with an all-star caliber player who wants to be in Indiana, and there's a contract and there's a chance for them to sign an extension or to sign back as a free agent, the Pacers have, the Herb Simon and the Simon ownership group have always stepped up to the plate. It happened with Reggie a multitude of times in his career. It happened with Jermaine O'Neal. It happened with every Pacer who's been an all-star who tells the Pacers ownership, I want to be in Indiana, they will match whatever the opposition throws. If you remember, the most recent experience when that happened was when Roy Hibbert's contract was up in the summer of 2012. And apparently the Toronto Raptors tried to outbid us. And Herb Simon stepped up to the plate and gave Roy a contract that was really too big for him. But ultimately, he took care of the All-Star. That's what good ownership groups do.
Speaking of taking care of the All-Stars, another All-Star on the Pacers, Domas Sabonis, has had to leave the bubble with a severe foot injury. What do you have to say about that? What does that mean for not only the Pacers but the league in general, and for Domas' career moving forward?
Well, if I hadn't seen the first scrimmage, I would have thought it would be a huge blow to the team.
Right.
I actually don't think it will be too big of an issue because the Pacers, you know, in the first scrimmage, they were playing without both their big guys. They were playing without Miles Turner and they were playing without Sabonis.
Started
They went to
Alizé Johnson and Jafar Sampson.
Yeah, they went to a small lineup. They were playing mostly a 5-out offense. And, you know, nobody's stats really jumped out at being super promising. But, you know, it was only a 40-minute game. It wasn't a full game. But the biggest thing I noticed about this was T.J. Warren was scoring with much greater ease when he was playing that 4 spot. And when the Pacers went small, I noticed that they moved the ball better. They got out and transitioned better. They had better spacing, and they got a lot of layups because teams would get overextended, and they would get a lot of backdoors, and they would get a lot of open threes off driving kick opportunities.
It almost reminded me of the Rockets.
Yeah, what it really reminded me of is Golden State. Not Durant Golden State, but Golden State with Harrison Barnes and Andrew Bogut.
Absolutely.
And this further reinforces my belief that, you know, if the Pacers don't get out of the first round this year, which I personally think they will, they should make a change at that 4 spot and bring in a modern 4. But again, that modern 4 has to be an all-star caliber player. You can't just, you know, bring in a first-round pick, for example.
Right.
But when the Pacers went small in that lineup, their offense became even harder to guard, and it became more. You know, they became like Villanova. The reason Villanova is so hard to beat in college basketball is because they spread the floor out and they overextend you. So you know, if you close out too deep, you're going to get. You know, somebody's going to drive right past you, and they always make the extra pass, and that's always been a staple of Nate McMillan teams in general and Pacers teams in general, is that they always make the extra pass.
Right.
I thought Jafar Sampson looked great. I thought Justin Holiday looked great, and I see a lot of promise in playing a perimeter-based lineup. I mean, you saw Brogdon in that third quarter just go off.
He did. He played great basketball.
And shooting a lot of threes, hitting a lot of threes. There's just a lot. I think Sabonis being out, making us play a smaller lineup actually might make our offense better in the short run. That won't be the case in the playoffs.
Playoff ball is a whole new story. Yeah, I completely agree.
You need rebounding and defense.
You do. So for Domas, it gets scary because it feels like every time Danny Granger, Paul George, Vic, Domas, it feels like almost any time we have a player that's really popping out and could have superstar potential, all-star potential, some injury comes in, and we're not. I haven't done my complete research on what the injury is that he has or anything or how severe it is, but it does feel like we're in a pattern almost. Star gets hurt, star gets hurt, star gets hurt.
Yeah, let's be clear. Domas doesn't have an injury. That was they miswrote that. It's a condition. It's a foot condition called plantar fasciitis. I'm not a doctor, obviously, but it's essentially inflammation of the soft tissue in between the bottom of your foot and the bones on the bottom and the bones in your foot. It's not severe. It's just time consuming. It's an injury that you can treat sort of, but honestly, the best. I mean, I've got a broken foot right now. I've learned more about the human foot in the last 3 months than I would ever hope to learn. And foot injuries are complicated. The foot's one of the most complicated parts of the human body. And honestly, the best way for Domas to get over this injury is to just to stay off of it, treat it, and let it heal. This is not an injury. This is not a condition or injury that you can, take a shot of cortisone and play through. You can't do this. Now, and to be clear, just because he's leaving the bubble now does not mean he won't be back by playoff time. He'll have to quarantine for 2 weeks when he gets back, but this does not mean he won't be back.
For sure. An idea I've seen, just to bring up something that I've been seeing floating around on Twitter, is the idea of, and this was primarily after the scrimmage and the Holiday brothers playing as well as they did, the idea of a Drew Holiday coming to Indiana if Vic weren't to be here after this year. How would you feel about that?
Well, just to be clear, you said if Victor does not want to be here.
Yeah, people have been saying if Vic, I don't know if it's trade or what. I've just seen Drew Holiday's name floating around so much in people's names when it comes to possible future lineups and ideal lineups or dream lineups, stuff like that. How would Drew fit?
Well, to be honest with you, I could see Drew Holiday coming here anyways, because New Orleans is not going to be a championship caliber team anytime soon. Alvin Gentry is down there is leaning more towards playing the younger players like Zion, like Lonzo Ball, like Brandon Ingram.
Right.
And so Drew Holiday, at this stage in his career, needs to be thinking win first. And
sure.
he has a player option this summer. And I think what you will see is I think he will opt out. I don't think money's as important as stability and playing for a championship. I think Indiana would be the best fit for him, and I think regardless of the Victor situation, I could see the Pacers either doing a sign and trade for him, or I could see the Pacers trading some of their younger players like Sumner, who are not getting the minutes they need to develop into rotational players, to create space within the cap to sign a veteran like Drew Holiday. I actually think Drew Holiday would be a great fit here. I think he would be a Sixth Man of the Year candidate, which to me is the biggest roster hole that this team has.
Right.
Whether you keep Miles or not, or whether you keep the two big guys or not, having another dominant ball handler off the court who can make plays and hit threes is never a bad thing.
Never is. Speaking of big guys, one guy that we don't really talk about on here often, Goga. How do you feel about where he stands on the team moving forward? I know a lot of people feel like he doesn't get the playing time he deserves. Some people feel like, I've heard people say he's the next Jokic. I've heard a lot of people have super high, and almost outrageous expectations. I don't know if he's a starting center in the league. I think he can develop into one. How do you feel about Goga and his career moving forward in Indiana?
Well, as long as Domas Sabonis and Miles Turner aren't on this roster, there's no way he'll be a starting center, especially if the Pacers decide to make a change this summer and go small. I think he could be a solid backup center off the bench, but if that's going to be his role in the future, I don't see him being any more of a beneficiary on our roster than Jeff Foster was. I don't see him turning into an all-star. I think he has all-star potential, just like I think Aaron Holiday has all-star potential. But do I think with the depth and the talent that we have in the starting lineup now, do I think they'll develop into that here? No.
Absolutely. I've seen some people.
It's the same problem Miles has. There's just not enough shots around.
For sure, and I've heard the idea. Some people have said that they drafted Goga to prepare for whenever they're going to move on from Miles, and that they're going to plug. But I completely agree with what we've been talking about on here, that they're Domas is who they want at the 5. They want Domas as the big guy. The 4, I feel like Aaron Gordon, like you said, Draymond, like you said, something like that. But I don't think Goga. A lot of people are huge on this big Goga train. Play Goga more. They get mad whenever he takes Goga out after small mistakes. Part of me feels the frustration, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about. He's really raw. He's a really raw player, really raw prospect. But he does have so much potential. Even though he doesn't fit on our team, it would be cool to see him grow into something we could trade for value one day in the future.
Yeah, that's kind of what I see as Aaron Holiday's purpose on the roster and Goga's purpose is they're and that's why the Pacers have so much upside on this roster right now.
Right.
Because the Pacers literally have two phenomenal young talents that are going to get enough minutes to develop into solid players, but they have all-star potential. They had all-star potential on draft day, and somebody is going to pay out their butt to get him. So somebody will make an offer sheet for one or both of those guys that we cannot refuse. I mean, somebody could offer up a couple of first-round picks for those two guys.
For sure.
If they get the minutes to develop. And that's why – and the only reason, honestly, that Goga's not playing right now is because Miles and Domas are on the floor together so much. There's just not enough minutes to go around.
Right. I'd seen that. That's what I saw a lot of too. Before the scrimmages started, whenever people was just seeing the lineups for the first time, a lot of people were saying this should have been Goga's. Goga should have got the nod, and then Alize Johnson or Jakar Sampson, I don't know who they had really at the 5, should have had to sit and let Goga start. But I like the way the offense was flowing with that 5. I mean, it's a small lineup, and like you said, it would be hard to work in the playoffs. But I like the way he was working.
Well, here's what I told I've got a friend who lives up in Chicago who's a big Pacers fan, and I told him, he and I were talking about this yesterday, and I said, try to, what you saw yesterday with all that ball movement, try to picture instead of T.J. Leaf and Jakar Sampson or T.J. Leaf and Alize Johnson, replace those two guys with Aaron Gordon and Kenneth Faried, and then ask yourself how those results would go.
Crazy.
So picture all that ball movement and all that spacing in your head, and then replace them with those guys.
For sure. Aaron Gordon, the more you talk about him and talk about how his fit would be with the Pacers, I love the idea of Aaron Gordon. I think he would be our main one. And I have heard him in trade rumors for years now. I mean, it's not a unknown thing that the Pacers have a lot of interest.
Well, there's absolutely no way that the Orlando Magic will get through this offseason and still have him on the roster. The Pacers just have to step up to the plate. But the Pacers are not going to get him unless they get a third team involved or they deal one of the starters, and I just don't see that happening. For
sure.
From what I heard, the reason this trade didn't go down at the deadline was because the rosters between the Magic and the Pacers were not compatible, and they couldn't come up with a deal that would benefit both teams straight up, which is why I think they need to get somebody like San Antonio to be that third team involved.
Absolutely. It would make a lot of sense. So unless you have anything else you want to talk about, I mean, I think that pretty much covers everything right now in the Pacers world that we can talk about as of right now. We will be making the defensive video to go along with the offensive breakdown we did a week or so back. We will be doing a defensive one of those soon. Have a lot of great content coming. I'm going to be doing some reaction to some game highlights. We're going to be breaking down some things. Going to do a lot of cool new things here on Pacer Station. Great having you again, Coach Jay. Can't wait to have you on next time. It was a great podcast.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
All right, Coach Jay. I'm going to talk to you in a little bit, man.
All right, bye-bye.
Pacer Station. We do this.